as we've said, we're going to reverse the gaze in the next conversation. You've had women talking to women, women talking to men, men talking to all of you. But today, in this moment, I'm going to invite three very special men and a very, very dear colleague of mine to be in conversation with them. These three men in their own ways have broken barriers. You know that phrase is used for women? This phrase needs to be used for the three men I'm about to introduce on the stage, because each one of them has pushed the envelope on making us rethink and relook at notions of what is feminine and what is masculine. And I think we don't acknowledge enough how, while we are products of our cultural conditioning, so are guys. And the three men I'm about to introduce have done stellar work, absolutely stellar work. If you don't follow their work, please do. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with their work. They're real change makers. So please put your hands together for Parmesh Shahani, Nikhil Taneja, Anish Gwande in conversation with Anuradha Sengupta. Let's hear it for them.
Thank you, Barkha. Are you tired? I've been watching her in and out as I worked through the day, in and out of the live feed going out of here. And this thing that Barkha's created, it was like all these warm vibes, all this excitement, the positivity. So it's very cool to be here. Thank you for having me here. And you guys, my God, you really kept the momentum going. And now for these lovely, lovely men here, we're going to talk about how to be a man. How to be a man. How to be a man, yaar. That's the name of your show, isn't it, Nikhil?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. 3 people have seen it.
Oh, that's total humble brag.
Okay,
yeah.
3.5. Fair enough.
How did you stumble upon it? Because I know you've got the who's who come onto this show, they weep, the men, and you're managing to showcase men in a way that we're not used to seeing them, and they're not used to seeing themselves.
I mean, there was no straight path to it, but in many ways, it seems like my entire life was leading up to me actually doing it. So we do something called the Yuva Roadshow of Kindness, where we go across the country, we meet a lot of young people like yourselves, and we create these safe spaces to listen to them. I would constantly hear young men speak about how lonely they felt. That was one of the things that was constantly coming, and I met about 10,000 people at this point. I've gone to about 150 campuses in the country. And a recurring thing was young people coming up, young men in particular coming up and saying, no one in my life has said, I love you to me. No one in my life has given me a hug. No one in my life has made me, I heard this thing from a boy that still stays so, it still has an impact on me when he said that, sir, jab se main bacha tha na mujhe, I mean, after that, no one has touched me, And when you hear such things, you realize that there is something that needs to be done about this. And when I'd ask, why would you not speak up about these issues, that they just feel like everyone judges me. I don't know if there is a space for me as a man to express myself.
So, Nikhil, I hear that, but I also know that we belong to a country where the Ladla Munna Beta from day one is treated with a lot of love. So why is that not translating?
Because when boys are expressing themselves, that is not seen as okay. As long as a boy is a return on investment for something, typically and traditionally, then that's cool. Even if a boy has a hobby, and this is things that I keep hearing, that if I have a hobby, my parents tell me the hobby is only worth it if it wins you a trophy or an award at something. It's not okay just to do. You can't just be a painter. You can't just be a singer. You can't just be, it has to lead to some monetization. That is your purpose in society. You are the provider. You have everything that you like has to lead to some effect. Right. And again, this is not at all to say that, I kept hearing again, if I'm talking about the boys, the thing that I heard most from the girls were how they would constantly be harassed. Everywhere you go in the country, girls only speak about harassment. So you are shocked. You are constantly thinking that what's happening. Sure. And then what you want to try and do is that, okay, so far the labor of men there has always been women's labor to make men feel less lonely. That, hey, I am here for you. Fortunately, what I'm also seeing is that women, like we see today, right, they're creating these sisterhoods among themselves.
Yeah.
They're creating this tribe
And
where they're
men are
helping
not
each other.
doing that.
Men don't know how to do it.
Got
And
it.
that's where the show came from, that listen, you all keep talking about how lonely you feel, speak to each other. And you don't just have to speak to each other about finances and about, doing well and, investing in crypto. You can also have a conversation about feelings.
Yeah.
And that's where the show really came. Can we normalize this
Got
idea
it.
of two men having an emotional conversation with each other?
Wonderful. Anish, you heard in the introduction, I'm sure, that
Parmesh agrees with me.
he's ventured into the world of Indian politics, and it's never going to be the same again. But
No.
what is this whole thing of being a man in the world of politics? What are you expected to be? What are the traits you're expected to show? We are in the middle of waiting. We are all waiting for the Maharashtra election results, right, with bated breath. What has it been like to be? What is a man expected to do in politics?
So, to start off with, if you work in politics, you work with a lot of men, and only men. There are almost no women around. And when you get a group of men together, it is the worst workplace you can find in the history of humanity. So to start off with, it is a tough job, and I really think politicians should get more credit for being in that space, especially if you're queer. But you have to kind of accept that you're jumping into the deep end of the pool, and then you have to go with it. The funniest story was 5 years ago. I had just come back from getting a bachelor's degree in comparative literature from New York City, and I'd come to Maharashtra to run.
Clap for that, clap for
Hey,
that.
no,
It's
don't
a
clap for
flex,
that.
Rhodes
No, it
Scholar
was-
and whatnot.
नहीं, वो तो बाद में आ गया. But I
New
had
York
come back
City.
and I was like, okay, chalo, I will do Indian Rajniti. And I said, okay, it'll probably be in South Mumbai and it'll be in environments that I'm comfortable with. But no, I was thrown off with the Maharashtra Congress to the Jana Sangharsha Yatra. And the first thing I needed was a wardrobe because I didn't have clothes to wear. And I was very clear back then that I'd
You
just
didn't
come
want
out.
to look like the
No, I didn't want to wear white
politician.
on white with those black Hawaii chappals, no. So that was not happening. So I was like, okay, then this is what was invented over the course of that election campaign. And what was really funny is that I was like mildly out at that point, not really very out on the campaign trail, but it was evident that I was looking very different from all the other men there. And we were on this bus and traveling across the length and breadth of Maharashtra for almost 6 months. And on month 1, there were a few sort of sniggers at the back. I used to sort of deal with them as I went to the back of the bus, etc., etc. By month 6, one of the senior politicians on that bus, I won't take any names, asked me, who's your tailor? And so, it was a really fun time. Where I was like, what does it mean to be a man? It means shattering all those expectations of what it means to be a man
Well said.
and to keep doing it bindas.
Parmesh, shattering all expectations of what it means to be a man, is it easier to do that if you're queer? Because I've heard straight guys who, and this is an absolutely authentic quote, saying that, every time I'm with a group of gay people, gay men, I feel they're just easier. They seem to have more fun. They seem to take a joke better. They're just, they're just easy in their skin. So is it easier?
No, it's not easier because I think queer people, we also live in patriarchy. We also suffer from misogyny, and often a lot of these are things we internalize and replicate within queer lives, within our relationships, within the movement, and so on. So it's not easy. It's not easy being in general. I'm really glad that we have Nikhil, who through Yuva and the show are showcasing alternative ways of being so that others can imagine, see, have role models, and then articulate for themselves, and what Anish is doing in politics as well, right? It's not easy at all. I think it's as difficult being queer as it is being straight. The difference there is that society is structured and geared towards straightness. So some things become easier because, people's expectations, people's mindsets, society itself is largely heteronormatively geared. So many things are easier. For example, if you're straight and you might want to spend a lifetime with your partner, you have the institution of marriage. For queer people, as of now, we don't have that as well. So we have to invent alternative ways of living, of being, of loving. And it's not that we've stopped, but it's just that we have to like maybe think more creatively and that. So it's just that. But on a daily basis, on a day-to-day basis, is it easier? I don't think so. I think it's the same. You know, I have straight friends also who are creative. And, you know, I have straight friends also who are emotional, who cry, as you've seen on the show as well. So I think these traits of fabulosity, of creativeness, of expression and all are universal. They're not linked to sexuality. And nor should they be linked to gender and as that, right? I think what all of us are trying to say is that, you know, masculinity is expansive.
Yeah.
And if we can all, you know, embrace that expansive, wonderful nature of masculinity, we expand into like humanity in general, right?
So what are the traits today that, you know, the alternative masculinity? And I would like to believe that all three of you embody an alternative idea of masculinity, you know, in the ideas you espouse, the choices you make. What is alternative masculinity? What would the traits be? Anyone who wants to go first?
I think just embracing your femininity. I think that is, I would say, the most easy way for all of us to be. I mean, if you're saying alternately masculine, I feel like all of us have, you know, all kinds of sides inside of us. Every one of us has a masculine, every one of us has a feminine. Unfortunately, when it comes to, and this is what society and patriarchy do, right? Like with women, they tell them that, you know, anytime they are slightly more masculine, you're too loud, you're too arrogant, you're too bossy. And if a man is slightly more feminine, it's always like you're too sensitive, you're too quiet, etc., etc. And if all of these things are wrong, you know, just let people be. I think all of us should have in us to be able to embrace any part of us that we enjoy, find joy in. And like you know, one of the things that I've actually learned from the queer friends and queer people around me is how comfortable they are with color. You know, I've always been someone who loves color, but I've always been embarrassed for a long time to kind of be wearing.
Because you're not expected
Yeah,
to
because, you know,
wear pink.
yeah, because, you know, anytime,
Yeah.
and I still sometimes do get, like, whenever
Yeah.
there's a pink, you know, even my mother judges me and saying, बहुत pink hai. I'm like, "Mama, तो ठीक है ना, कोई-" I like it. It's fun. Why can't, you know, men also be vibrant and flamboyant, even if they're heterosexual? You know, it's not a crime to be.
Yeah. Alternative masculinity, what do you understand by it? What would you say are the traits that would be different from traditional masculinity, toxic masculinity, which we are all very familiar with, and now alternative masculinity?
You know, I think, one, if you are a man performing masculinity, you're changing what masculinity means to begin with, right? So you have to stop making it alternative and make it sort of something that is accepted as the mainstream. But I think the one thing that I'm very invested in is gender as fun, right? I think we take it a little too seriously. We take these stereotypes that are put on us very seriously. Now, I hate having a beard. I absolutely detest having a beard. But I know that I have to go on these stupid television channels, so I have to keep a beard on. And it's
No,
fun.
why? I didn't get the connection.
No, it's you seem a little more authoritative, you
Listen,
seem a little
I-
more formal. I also don't look 17.
Glasses also.
Okay.
Listen, I also, by the way, I started having a beard when I started my company because no one would take me seriously enough because my face is like very cute. I'm sorry to say that
Correct.
it is.
No,
right?
100%.
And the moment I had a beard, suddenly I seem more of a man
They are
than
doing
others.
alternative. They are all both conforming to
No,
like
but we're not
stereotypical
conforming.
Just-
Nah, then I'm not wearing what you're meant
Beard
to
and
wear.
pink.
So you're sort of, you
have to
play.
compromise.
You lean in sometimes. But you have to be fun with it, you know? You can't sometimes take it so seriously and take it as a sort of matter of life and death. The minute you do that, it sort of becomes something that weighs down on you and then weighs down on others as well. And then you have people sort of using that as a way to take digs at you, be able to sort of undermine your masculinity. When you can have fun with it, then I can go on having a beard and then still have ruffled hair. You know, and then you sort of play around,
Yeah.
push the envelope, go a bit further and backward. So play is very important for alternative.
Playfulness, to being
Playfulness.
to being playful. Parmesh?
If I can just add to what Anish said, this idea of play, this idea of fun, I think no one symbolizes it more than Shah Rukh Khan. So, any Shah Rukh fans in the house? So I think to be, I mean, you know, not alternative because I don't think it's alternative. I don't like that. It's you know, Shah Rukh is as mainstream as you get. But progressive would be a better word. what is progressive masculinity? It is this idea of play, it is the idea of being in touch with your emotion, it is the idea of, you know,
And embracing your feminine side. That's what
yeah, but you know, so to me, there is, you know, masculine and feminine are behaviors. I don't think that there are sides. I think these are coded behaviors that we have, so we have attributed over years that this is feminine. The truth is, crying is a behavior. It's not linked to any, it's a gender trait or whatever, right? In terms of that. So I think someone like Shah Rukh, who is fun, who is witty, who is emotional, who is kind, who is loving. These are
Flamboyant.
all flamboyant,
Yes.
beautiful, but also plays. You know, the idea of play would be great. So if anyone wants to know how to be a more progressive man, be like Shah Rukh.
Shah Rukh.
And not like animal.
So, you know, I don't know if you heard, Javed Saab was here and Barkha was talking to him, and she asked him very categorically, why did Animal, why was it such a big hit? So now, given your perspective, try and explain to us why Animal was such a hit. What did it, why did it connect with so many men, you know, and why did it become such a monster hit? You brought it up.
Listen, anytime this question has been asked to me, I always point out, and it's so interesting that he said Shah Rukh Khan, because I've been asked this question a lot because my show also released in the same year as Animal, and where you had Animal on the big screen, you had, for whatever it's worth, my show on digital, and there was both sides of masculinity. But for us to be spending so much time talking about why Animal exists, while taking away at the same time a bigger hit that happened in that year in Shah Rukh Khan's Jawan and a Shah Rukh Khan's Pathan, where he was constantly worshipping women. In Jawan, he meets Nayanthara for the first time, he's shaking. And she tells him, listen, you know, I've had a kid out of wedlock. And he's like, that's cool. You know, he's constantly showcasing what a progressive man looks like. In Pathan, the first scene where Deepika is introduced, she saves him. And he's never fighting her. He's never like, hey, listen, I don't need to be saved. He's so happy. He's like, wow, I'm being saved by this really cool women. You know, and that's why are we not talking enough about, in the same year, that behavior that made much more money than Animal? By constantly also talking about Animal as it, you know, it's one thing that happened, and I feel like, you know, there's going to be several movies like that, but I think at the same time, this year's 3, making 600 crores, in last year being the biggest hit, being a film called Animal, and this year the biggest hit being a film called Stree, that also tells you we are still okay. We are still okay as a society.
But
So-
you know, this tussle
Yeah.
is what's important, and this is the
Yeah.
tussle that is going on in Indian society, and which is why we the women, you know, everything that we do in our lives showcases to people that other worlds are possible. This masculinity is also possible.
Absolutely. One quick question. How do you break through to people who have been brought up without the opportunities or the worldview that you have, or the, you know, the experiences that you have, or the parenting that you may have had? How do you make this attractive to people who don't come from similar backgrounds and experiences, to who, you know, all the traits associated with traditional masculinity are easy?
Can I?
Yeah.
So, you know, we've been struggling with this at Godrej. We have factories in places like Malanpur, which are incredible, where there are so many men and more women. And what we've found that succeeds is, of course, hiring more women, but showcasing men that help. So when we hire more women, we also show videos of her husband who is saying, I'm so proud my wife is working in this factory. I love making her dabba. So I think a lot of it is in showcasing, you know, this positivity, showcasing that this is also a way of being. I think one way is also not underestimating the goodness, the kindness, the ability of most people to rise up to their better selves. I think we can do some of that. It really helps.
I'm going to add to that because in politics, you can't afford to ignore those people. I can't say I'm going to ignore you. I have to convince you. And I think that change starts at home. I think my biggest success even now is convincing my father not to vote for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That took 10 years. And it took 10 years of fighting, watching Barkha's show actually. I remember screaming at each other, watching NDTV because he wanted to watch Times Now and saying, no, we're going to watch this and I'm going to change your mind. But it takes those 10 years and you have to keep fighting.
You have to keep fighting,
have
keep
to
being
keep
invested. And boys should be treated differently when they're growing up, right? You do a thing on your show called, you'll ask your guests to look at their childhood or boyhood.
Unboxing boyhood, yeah.
Yeah, so that that time is different, right? I mean, that is where it all falls
I
into
think
place.
again, you know, we need to
That age.
we need to raise our children in the same way.
Yeah.
Any kind of children, you know, whether it's a boy, whether it's a girl, no matter what gender the child is, it needs to be treated with the basic love and kindness that I feel like we reserve sometimes a little less for the men, a little less for the boys.
Yeah.
I think I always say this: we force our boys to be men before they can learn what it means to be human. You know.
Well said.
You got a peek
I
of
think,
our
yeah.
next guest,
Yeah.
so I will
Yeah.
request you to say thank you now, Anuradha.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anish, Nikhil,
Thank you so much.
Anuradha, and Parmesh. Okay. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, guys. Sorry.
Not sorry, just sorry.